Welcome to my podcast. My name is Corrinala, and I come to you from the Pacific Northwest, where I live with my husband, 2 horses that I adopted from the Bureau of Land Management Wildhorse Adoption Program, and 2 kitties we adopted from the local animal shelter. Information about these adoption programs will be in the show notes for every episode. The purpose of this podcast is to share real-life stories that hopefully are relatable to other crafters who might be interested in horses. The format of this podcast starts with a walk to the barn to feed the horses, catch up on the week, share my knitting projects, and other interests like bicycling or hiking. I also talk about vegetable gardening and cooking. I hope you bring your favorite beverage and a fun, crafty project to work on. Enjoy! Good morning, friends. Happy Friday. It is May 8th, 2025. It is about 6 a.m. Nice spring morning, a little chilly-ish, although not too chilly because I don't have a hat on and I'm wearing just regular sleeves and not a whole jacket. What should we talk about as we walk out to the barn and feed the horses? Let's talk about knitting first. I have 3 projects, works in progress, to talk about today. 2 you have seen before. Well, maybe you've seen all 3. I have no finished objects. I'm turning on the water in the pump house, in case you're wondering. In case you're new here, if you are, welcome. If you're an old friend, of course, welcome. That's my knitting, so I am in 2 knit-alongs right now, which is silly, and I bought a pattern for a 3rd knit-along, but I'm not going to participate because it's just too much, quite honestly. What else this week? We've had a little rain. We had some really warm weather. We've had just a little bit of rain, more on the drizzly side. We really could use more rain. I'm not sure what it must be just the sky that's so bright behind me, even though it's cloudy out. We are in a drought situation, so if you're keeping up any news or you live here in the West, our snowpack over the winter was dismal, and we are just really dry. And our creek that I'll be crossing here soon is pretty low. It's barely flowing, and this is probably the earliest I will have seen it this low. So hopefully there's some rain in our future. The pond's pretty low. I'm guessing there's fish in there, although quite honestly I haven't looked. Work-wise, I commuted to the office one day this week. My other commute day, which would have been yesterday, my farrier came, so I had to be here for that, which of course doesn't break my heart. What else is going on? I feel like there just hasn't been a lot new. So I had a riding lesson last week. It was really fun. Been doing a lot more work over poles, which I love, because hopefully that is preparing us to do a little jumping. Hi, Bragi. Bragi had a lesson last week, has another one today, because we are getting ready for the clinic that he's going to. You hear that, Bragi? You're going to be a big boy horse. Not exactly sure where O is. Here's Bragi. Hey, cutie. Hi. So I'm going to get to feeding, and I'll catch up soon. Hey, friends. I have a couple more errands to run before I can actually get into the podcast in earnest, but I wanted to show you what I'm wearing today. This is the Talvinen sweater. It's fingering weight colorwork sweater. There's some colorwork here at the bottom, but mostly it's this Finnish, as in Finland, soul bird. That's the main pattern. It's perfect weather for a fingering weight sweater, so I thought I would share that with you before I get in the car and run my errand. Well, finally, we are at the knitting part of this episode. I realized that wasn't a very long time between the introduction and the introductory walk out to the barn and the little bit that I talked about, the errand that I ran, which I got some coffee. So this is a reusable Starbucks mug that somebody gave me a long time ago, and I like to use it. And here we are. So I just have a few things to talk about. Let's talk about the sock arm sweater. I mean, it seems like that's a bit of a fan favorite. So sock arm sweaters in this bag that was made by my husband with his industrial sewing machine. The pattern is from this book, Knit Happy with Self-Strapping Yarn. This is the fourth pattern I have knit from this book. It's by Stephanie Lotven. The link to it is in my show notes if hopefully your hands are occupied with a project and you don't have the means to write things down right now. So here it is. I am on the second sleeve. So it starts with a sleeve cap, and then I just joined in the round and knit a few rounds, and then it goes into decreases. So this is what the first sleeve looks like. This yarn is a self-striping sock yarn by Freckled Whimsey. It's called Jeepers Creepers. The main color is a Knit Picks Gloss, which is a merino and silk blend. The colorway is Clarity. It's a little bit oversized. Looks like the camera's kind of showing like a color difference between here and here. I don't know if that's real. That is very interesting. I don't know if you can see it, but I certainly saw it in the camera. They are the same dye lots, but they look a little bit different. Well, wouldn't that be a surprise? This is supposed to be a cardigan, but I decided to make it into a pullover. So I'm planning on doing the ribbing so that it at least meets right here or maybe even overlaps. And I haven't decided whether I will do the ribbing around the collar in this main colorway or the self-striping yarn. I think that will all depend on how much self-striping yarn I have left, which, I mean, right now where I'm at in the beginning of this second sleeve, I have quite a bit. I am using Chogu red lace, US size 4, 3.5 millimeter needles. I have a feeling I'm going to get through this section really fast. The other old friend that I'm working on is in this bag, which was made by my mom. This was a Christmas present. Note the little black kitty motif, which Randy and I have two little black kitties. And this is the Traveler by Andrea Mowry. This is one of the knit-alongs that I have mentioned. I mentioned earlier today, and the knit-along ends at the end of this month. I am on the first sleeve. So last week I described how I lost a yarn chicken. So I intentionally did this two different colors. What I did not intentionally do was run out of yarn for the body and end up with the contrast color on the back, but I think it's fine. So here is the sleeve. So naturally I misread the pattern and I started the decrease rows right away, which actually would not be a problem. But when I was getting toward the end of the decrease rows, I thought, well, that's going to be a really short sleeve. So then I read the directions and noticed that you're supposed to knit at least 12 inches before you start the decrease rows. So I just started knitting the pattern, putting that length at this end, which is totally fine. And I may end up putting decrease rows, probably for the last 30 rows. I think I'll do the decrease rounds just to make sure that I don't want the sleeves too baggy. So, and this is an oversized sweater. I did make it a little bit fitted. So both of these yarns are Cascade 220 in sport weight. The pattern, which is a stockinette and garter, it's stockinette with purl rows, and it makes it very squishy. So this is not going to be a sweater I will wear this summer, or at least that's very unlikely. So, and I do plan to make the hooded version. And I believe, I'm not going to be so certain about how much. I have plenty of yarn. I think I said that all along with the body of the sweater with this variegated color. And then it turns out I didn't. And I think it's because I added additional length. And I added additional length because I was making it more fitted. It needed the length. If I was to stick with the oversize as intended, it would have naturally draped more. So it's my own fault, but you know, it usually is. And then the third project that I have been giving my attention to is in this bag, also made by my mom and a Christmas present most recently, is a knit along with the Love and Stitches membership. And we are knitting summer tanks and tees. The featured designer is Rebecca Clow, who also is the Creabea, if you're familiar with her. She is based out of Edinburgh, Scotland, and is a very prolific designer. So I gotta get my patterns back where they belong. So this one needs to go back in its bag. So Andrea Mowry for the Traveler. And this one is knit in a DK. This is the same yarn as I knit my wedding shawl from. So this is a cone of, I think it's a merino cashmere, and it's knit top down. So of course I'm showing it to you upside down. So it's this really pretty kind of lace pattern. There's a bobble section here. I really do not like knitting bobbles. So I opted for the lace option, which is, creates these little holes. So what I hope you can see is this kind of nifty diamond pattern in there. So lovely texture. The yarn I got from, I want to say I got it from Great Britain, although I cannot read. The label is in here. And I have 2 cones of this. So, and I barely used any of one of the cones for my wedding shawl. So dare I say it, I will have plenty of yarn for this tee and probably some left over for something else. So I'm on about the 40th row. This has many, many charts for a lot of different sizes. I did not print the page that has the actual picture of the garment. But hopefully you get an idea. And I assume it is knit in pieces and then seamed together. So that is that. There were the gauge swatch instructions for this were a little strange in that it said get such and such gauge for the different patterns. And I thought, well, I'll just start knitting the patterns and then measure gauge. So right now I am right on gauge, which is actually kind of unusual. And it's meant to have a fair amount of ease. I opted for the minimum amount of ease. Again, I don't like stuff falling off my shoulders. I like the neck to be fairly fitted. I like sweaters to be fairly fitted because they're not for show, just for show for me. I wear them, you know, I'm a relatively active person when I'm not sitting at my desk. And I need them to not be in my way. I have also been working on my 100-acre wood blanket, which is a pattern by K.F. Jones. So I had several meetings this week or review projects where I was able to, whoops, wrong bag. This bag, which is holding all my yarn scraps that is going into the blanket, was also made by my mom. This is a very simple drawstring bag. It's not lined or anything. The blanket is in this bag. Also made by my mom. Very simple drawstring bag, and of course, the horse motif. So I am on the 4th stripe. And I'm getting kind of close. I'm at least halfway down of this 4th stripe. So this is where I'm at. So I know this was a row 1 mini. Kind of don't remember. I'm thinking this was maybe Blanket Club from Polka Dot Creek. Don't remember that one. This was a self-striping yarn, Freckled Whimsey. I think this was a Woolen Women. Some of these are, this is row 1. This was from the first Love Note sweater. Can you see that? I knit. And the one I'm working on now is a colorway from Legacy Fiber Arts. So that's, and I'm using these Flexi Flip needles in the 2.75 millimeter size. These are Addy Flexi Flips. So yeah, I've been making some progress on this. I've been kind of getting into the blanket knitting, and I'm looking at my jar of scraps that are from leftovers from leftovers that went into this blanket. And I'm kind of thinking about looking at another blanket pattern because my scrap jars are getting full. So let me get stuff out of my way so that I can stand up and show you. So here's a better view of the bottom part of this sweater that I was trying to show you earlier. So this is the jar of leftovers that are, I think they're less than 20 grams. My label's in there somewhere, but it's full. So I'm kind of thinking of starting a K. Jones jelly roll blanket out of these. Now, I could use these, which could be, saving these could be fun for colorwork projects, scrappy colorwork projects, which I really enjoy doing. So, and then I have this other jar, which is over for leftovers. It's over 20 grams that I can knit more socks out of. So at least shorty socks. So that's kind of what I'm planning to do that. And some of those in the less than 20 jar, they can be like cuffs or toes or stuff like that. So still thinking, I don't need to cast on another blanket. I have 3 pairs of socks that are hibernating right now. So I don't really need to do that either. But let me talk about the pattern that I am, that there's another knit along. The pattern's by Andrea Mowry. Just heard a kitty come in. Oh, hi, Harley. It's for a vest, and I think she's calling it the flock vest, if I recall. And it's a button-down vest, kind of V-neck. It's made out of worsted weight. I have plenty of, there I am, using that word. I have plenty of. I'm coming from a place of plenty. When it turns out, I run out. I have some leftover worsted weight yarn. One is from the Rye sweater, which is kind of a maroon sweater. I think it's a Barocco pattern, if I remember right. And I made it out of a Barocco yarn. So I am going to use that kind of maroon color for this vest. The vest itself is striped. I don't know when I'm going to start it because I have, it's in, if you're interested in my Stashdown plans, I have patterns for a lot of my stash. So that vest is going to be part of those Stashdown plans. So I have a list of patterns that I plan to use for all my leftovers, and it's at least a dozen. So there's another pattern I've been looking at. It's by Carson Demers, Demers. I signed up for his newsletter. He's a knitter and a physical therapist, so he often has good tips for keeping your hands and arms and back and your whole body flexible and pain-free for knitting, which I think is really important. I actually have his book. I think it's called Knitting Comfortably. And he has a pattern, which is also a vest. I'm not sure why I'm really interested in vests right now, but I kind of always have been. I've just never really knit one. I mean, I've knit tank tops, I've knit sleeveless garments, which are kind of vests. But the pattern is a texture pattern, much like this. I didn't say the name of the pattern for the Rebecca Clow knit along. I think it's called Staffin. Anyway, the pattern for this vest that Carson has available that I'm kind of eyeballing is also a texture pattern, and it requires a tonal color. I don't have a lot of tonal colorways, especially in fingering weight yarn. That's not true. I have more Knit Picks gloss. I think I have some in a dark purple and a dark gold, so I will have to think about that. I may not have enough in either color for that. So it's good to talk through these things. Don't you agree? You get new ideas. So that's it for what's going on knitting wise. Life wise, talked about work. I mentioned I applied for a job on the east side of the mountains. I was invited to interview, but which was very flattering. It was an in-person interview, which meant that I would have to drive over, take an afternoon off, drive over, interview for 30 minutes, and then drive back. And then Randy and I talked about it, and we just decided if I was offered the job, not that I would have to take it, we're not ready for that big of a change. It would be a big move. I mean, the town itself is about 3 hours away from where we live. Completely different environment. It's on the east side of the mountains. I already said that. But we both have jobs here, and bless my farrier's heart. I told her about it yesterday when she was here doing the boys' feet. And I said, yeah, I applied for, I said I was mad at my current employer about the return to office and commuting, the requirement to commute. So I applied for a job that's across the mountains. And she said, is it remote? And I said, no. And she just burst out laughing, which of course is absolutely right. That's just me having a temper tantrum. So, it's pretty mild in terms of a temper tantrum. I will say it was flattering to get the offer to interview. What else is going on? I'm just trying to think. I don't have my computer in front of me, so I don't have my notes. I didn't take very good notes this time. What else is going on? I already talked about the weather. It's cloudy, maybe just slightly drizzly today. Bragi is still working on getting ready for the clinic that he doesn't know he's going to go to. He's just on the struggle bus sometimes. It's hard sometimes he's really soft and engaged, and other times he's so uncomfortable in his own skin that, I don't know what to do with him. He's very allergic to bugs. I've been keeping him covered in bug goop and bug spray, and he still manages to get bloody scabs somehow. So one of the errands that I ran this morning, I went and got some diaper cream. So I'm hoping that might help. I mean, I use a typical like equine fly ointment, fly prevention ointment, but he's covered in this stuff, but somehow the bumps still arise. So he's having a reaction from something. I've had him allergy tested. I have eliminated all the allergens from his diet. that I know of. And so it's just, I mean, it could be pollen, which there's a lot. I've heard him coughing a little bit. So just trying to figure out, I mean, when he's good, he's very, very good. And when he's not, you know, he's just, you have to meet him where he's at. And that's what I do. Odin, he is still just such a good soul. He's still doing his 9 minutes of physical therapy exercises, very intentional work, and he's always enthusiastic about it, which tells me we're doing the right amount, maybe not quite enough. So I'm going to test him today. We're going to do up and down the driveway, which is the bigger, steeper hill, which is, it's easy enough for him to get up it. It's going down. That's really hard for him. So, and because it engages his stifles, which is where his arthritis is. So, but you know, if he does that fine without too much trouble, then I'll increase his time to 10 minutes per session. So I think that'll be fine. And hopefully I'll get to check in with my vet next month or maybe in July. What else is going on? Oh, I talked about my writing lesson, so I'm going to go this afternoon. This particular session is almost, it ends the end of May. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to go next week while Bragi's at his clinic. Our session is at 10 a.m. in the morning. It's just a matter of whether or not I want to stick around. And I mean, my trainer's going to be there. It would be nice if I could go to my writing lesson, quite honestly, and then just come back and check in with Bragi as after I'm done. Today, we have a friend coming over for dinner. So somebody we've been friends with for a long time. We met her on a ski bus, gosh, 10 years ago, maybe more. It was before she retired. She was a nurse, and we've just been great friends ever since. So I know it was at least 10 years ago because we went to Canada together to do some skiing in 2014. So it would have been a few years before that. So she has 2 new grandchildren. Well, one's newer than the other. And that's been keeping her busy. So it's really great that she is going to making some time for us and coming over to have dinner with us tonight and staying over. So that'll be really fun. And I think that is pretty much it. The only other thing, gardening news, been harvesting a lot of sprouting broccoli, which has been great. All my other brassicas that overwintered are bolting and flowering, which I leave them because the pollinators like them. I picked up 2 tomatoes at the tomato plants at the grocery store this morning because Mother's Day weekend is the weekend you're supposed to plant tomatoes in this part of the United States, so in our climate. So perhaps I'll do that. Not sure what the weather's supposed to be like this weekend. Maybe more of this kind of cloudy business. So hopefully I'll get out for a bike ride. I know I have a lot of like chores I need to do, cleanup chores around the barn because the weeds are growing like crazy, and the Himalayan blackberries come up, and it's time to cut them off. The other thing I'm doing today, and I'm going to do in about 30 minutes, is I have been taking the Karen Rolfe Dressage Naturally. The course is called something like Bio Sweet Spot for Healthy Biomechanics or something like that. And I have a one-on-one call with one of the instructors. And I want to talk to her about Odin, how to use some of the techniques that I learned to help Odin with his arthritis. So I'll be doing that. And that's basically it. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're making progress on your projects and enjoying spring if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, and fall if you are not. So take care, everyone, and I don't know if I'll see you. I may not see you next week because of the clinic. So again, we are leaving here at 7:30 a.m. and Bragi's session is at 10. So I may miss you guys, but anyway, have a good 2 weeks. Bye.